Well, Thomas Sowell, the black writer, says of this book that The End of Racism is a heartbreaking book because the truth is heartbreaking.
Yeah, it is.
It is a tough book, as I say, and yet it's a hopeful book because if our problems are in our genes, we can't do anything about
Right.
them. And if the problems of blacks are due to white racism, I don't know of any way, even if we could magically get rid of white racism overnight, this would do nothing to increase black test scores, improve black savings rates or black rates of business formation.
Hey, what, like 96, 1996. Look at us now, 27 years later. Has this improved? All this focus on racism, discrimination, affirmative action. Has it helped black people? No, black people still have lower test scores. Why? Because the black people didn't change. The black people didn't change their behavior. They didn't change how they approach academics. So they're going to keep getting the same result. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can make it easier for the horse to get to the water, but if the horse does not decide to take the steps to actually achieve the outcome, drinking the water, they're still going to get the same. Change is outside of your comfort zone. That goes for as an individual and that goes for as a community. For 50 years, the black community has been hearing a message that it's someone else's fault. It's white privilege's fault. It's racism's fault. This is phantom. This is a boogeyman. The truth of the matter is that the black community is doing actions and behaviors that's creating outcomes that negatively affect the community as a whole. And instead of accepting the fact that, hey, we need to change our value systems in our culture to push our youth into doing more highly productive things that will help us academically and then economically. No, black community don't want to do that because that would admit that they were chasing the wrong problem. So they doubled down and said, no, Kenny, you're excusing white supremacy. Instead of looking at my argument and actually saying, does Kenny have a point here? Is it more probable that we are the cause of our own undoing? Or is it actually some elaborate system that's out to make us fail in life? Because if it was a system, then all black people would fail. But that's not the case. Black people still make it. Black people are still academically successful. Now you get the people who are capable of making it to Harvard on their own merit. Now you got them questioning themselves, damn, did I really get here? Or was it because of affirmative action? And this is the biggest problem I have with identity politics and the DEI stuff, is that even as someone who's already capable of achieving these standards without any help from affirmative action, people will credit your success with affirmative action. Oh, it's affirmative actions the reason why you made it into life, Kenny. The reason you made it into being a YouTuber or in your corporate position is because of affirmative action. My friend tried to do that to me. I was like, so you don't think I would have made it without affirmative action? No, because he has this idea that black people won't get any opportunities without affirmative action. This is why I say affirmative action needs to die, needs to go. Someone needs to abolish it. Because it allows these people to continue slandering people, black people who would have made it on their own merits with this nonsense. So, hey, I digress. I appreciate the super chat, Jonathan Fields. I hope you come back as always, but hey, if not, I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much for the super chat.
Or strengthen black families or reduce black on black crime. Those are the most serious problems facing blacks. Now, for a generation, people have said you cannot point at these problems because to do so is blaming the victim.
Right.
When Daniel Patrick Moynihan wrote his report on the black family in the 60s, the illegitimacy rate for blacks was 25%. He said it was a national tragedy, and people said, you're a racist, stop talking about it. And he did. He hasn't said a word about it since. The illegitimacy rate for blacks in the United States today is close to 70%. So when these problems are ignored, they metastasize, they become far worse. On the other hand, if they are recognized and acknowledged, I'm confident that they can be addressed.
What caused that pathology or that culture that you document and
Incentives caused the culture from the black community going from 25% single motherhood to 72% single motherhood, right? And one of the problems I think I have as a conservative is that when I bring out that, hey, black on black crime is a problem, black men committing disproportional more crimes than other groups of people is what's causing them to be incarcerated at a higher rate. We need to fix that. The black community needs to fix that. It's not no one else's fault. We need to fix it. People want to act like, oh, no, the problem's not there. You're making that up. It's actually the system's fault. The system's fault for this. Appreciate the super chat. Chance Green is dead. The $4 super chat. You just gave me a sticker. I appreciate it so much. But That's how people play it. People say, I don't want to point out the problem. The problem is someone else's fault, not mine. Behavior causes outcomes, not your skin color, not discrimination. Discrimination is only an obstacle. But how you respond to that obstacle is whether you get success or you get failure. Because at the end of the day, it's on you. If you have no responsibility for your outcome, then you have no authority over your outcome. And last time I checked, God gave us free will. Whatever you believe, nature, God, logos, the truth and the reality is everyone has free will. And what you do with that free will determines your outcome, right? Like I said, you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. And how you respond, does it make your situation better or does it make it worse? How I like to respond is, hey, how can I not make this bad outcome worse? And you do that step by step, and eventually you're in a better position than how you started off. And I think that's a message that's a more empowering message for black people than to tell them that their fate's at the hands of white people and it's up to white people to change their ways and change their privilege or remove standardized testing so that way black people can have achievement in this life. I think that's a very condescending message. And I think that black community has been brainwashed by the liberals to accept that as a positive one, which is, I disagree with that. I think that's a very condescending message. But hey, I'm different. I think differently than most people. But I digress. Let's continue with the video.
Itemize as this, what you see as the source problem.
Well, first of all, it's not solely caused by poverty. One of the contributions of the book is it disputes the so-called culture of poverty analysis that goes back to the 60s. I point out, for example, that Asians and whites who come from poor families making less than $20,000 a year score higher on tests of academic achievement.
That's 96.
Than blacks who come from families earning over $60,000
Wow.
a year. I point out that...
So even the money point, when they say, oh, it's because Asian people, you just admitted, Kenny, Asian people are the richest race of people in America. That's probably why the reason why they achieve so well academically is because of economics. Well, no, it's not. It's because of processes, because of behaviors, because of decisions, family values, family rearing, culture. That's the reason why the black community is falling behind. It's not because of racism that the black community is falling behind. It's because of a dysfunctional decision-making in our communities. It's how we raise our kids. If you raise your kids and you're a single parent and you have to go work to provide for them, who's raising your kids? Your environment's raising your kids. The gangs are raising your street. There's a saying in the hood, the streets raise your kid. If you don't raise your kid, the streets are raising your kid. Who's it easier to raise your kid? Because I'll bet you, even a married couple, a married black family that is in the hood, their kids perform better than kids that have a single parent household because of this. Because there's two parents, there's two opportunities to rear your kid in the family's values. And the family's values will push you to greater heights academically, economically, than the environment surrounding him. This is why I say poverty is not the cause of the black outcomes. Poverty is not the cause of crime in the black community. I believe crime is the cause of poverty. People can debate me that in the comment section, but I digress. Let's continue.
Poor blacks have a much higher illegitimacy rate than poor whites, for example, and so on. I think one of the reasons for this is that blacks have had a unique experience in the United States, differing from that of immigrants. And it's not surprising that as a result of that experience, blacks have developed a culture, a set of attitudes, values, behaviors that are formed out of the crucible of that experience. For example, I point out that while Americans have traditionally been hostile to the federal government, viewing it as the enemy of rights. Mm-hmm. For blacks, the federal government has been a deliverer of rights, a provider of rights. It was the federal government that ended both slavery and segregation and played a crucial role in employing a lot of blacks in this century. It was the main force behind affirmative action, for example. Many blacks owe their middle-class status to the government.
That's what they say. But even in the 1960s, appreciate the super chat, Seco, $2 super chat. This is my first time. I don't know if you mean seeing you. You put simping you. Seeing you. Please be gentle. I'll try to be gentle. I'll try. But what I was going to say with this government intervention, I think the black community has kind of got sedated in a way, got used to being comfortable with government intervention, government doing things for them. And it conditioned the black community kind of to be dependent on the government. The same way the slave got dependent on the slave master, right? And I always make this claim that Democratic Party plays plantation politics with black community, minority communities, poor communities. The Democrats play this game of, hey, you need to be dependent on us, And for your dependents, we have to benefit from you, aka your vote. Just like slaves, okay, we're gonna take care of you from cradle to grave, but you have to labor on our behalf, and we'll take care of you. But I have authority, I have power, I have say so. I can mistreat you, right? Black community is always complaining about how the Democratic Party, they're in an abusive relationship with the Democratic Party. That's just why, because they were taught and conditioned, especially by liberal schools, to be dependent on a political party to do things for them. And my argument as a conservative is to say, hey, Black community, stop focusing so much on political power and start focusing more on your human power. Develop your human power, because only through human power can you actually be independent from a political party. But I digress.
So it's not surprising that blacks have a cultural orientation that looks at government sympathetically. You know, we have recently this million-man march on Washington. Blacks always marching on Washington, looking to the government for answers. Meanwhile, other groups are setting up entrepreneurial associations, rotating credit systems, and within a generation.
I'm sorry, I keep pausing it, but what he said there was important. Other groups of people focus on, hey, how can we better our situations without being dependent on a political party, right? Entrepreneurship, right? Human capital is one way of phrasing this, right? And in the 1920s, somewhere in there's a league, the Negro Business League. Black community was doing this. When Black community was majority, like overwhelmingly Republican, they were doing this stuff. They were doing entrepreneurships. They were becoming professionals. They were focused on gaining skills. They didn't worry about political power as much, right? But this is what I'm talking about, this long march. Just like the liberals and the Marxists and the progressives had this long march through the institutions, the Democrat Party had this long march through the Black community, right? Either they lynched them to force them to vote Democrat, right? The Democratic Party conditioned the Black community to be dependent on them. Oh, you want protection? That's why the Tulsa massacre, that was done by Democrats. Because they saw, damn, these Black people are actually doing stuff for themselves. They created their own little business district. We can't let these second-class citizens show us that they're actually at our level. That hurt our interpretation, our view of them. And they went and destroyed Black Wall Street. That's what happened. Look it up. There was ex-slaves that died millionaires. 1920s. The Black community, when they were being entrepreneurial, when they were thinking, let me do for myself. Oh, you don't want me in your hotel? I'm gonna build my own hotel. The Black community, you're gonna hear this. You hear it first from Kenny from Talks with Kenny. In Black history, Black people were the first one to do the parallel economy. Right now, conservatives are trying to build the parallel economy. Now we have Daily Wire. We have all these media companies that's coming up because progressives want to censor us, exclude us from the public square. So now we have to create our own public square. The Black community was doing that. And it shows you that the Democrat Party never really changed. Plantation politics. They like to exclude people, discriminate against people. That's the Democratic playbook. That's the plantation politics. Democrats love discriminating against people. Now they can't discriminate you on your race anymore, so they find something else to discriminate against you. And they still discriminate on race. Look at affirmative action. So instead of discriminating against Black people, they discriminate for Black people. But Democrats, this is how they play. They make sure they get something for it. Oh, we're entitled to your vote. That's why when Misha Manor switched parties, she got such a backlash for it. All that hate mail for it. Because, all we done for you? We discriminated for you? Because at the end of the day, Democrats like to play tick for tat. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Right? And imagine this. I say as a conservative, hey, Donald Trump had lower Black unemployment than Barack Obama, and he only had, at the time, 6% of the Black vote. So imagine that. You, as let's say, if I looked at the Black community as a voting bloc, you voted for a party only 6%, and they gave you a better outcome than the party you voted 94%. Imagine that. But, this is what I'm saying. Democrats only do something for Black people because they believe they get a benefit from it. Who really care for you? Someone that does something expecting something in return, or someone that does something regardless if they get something back for it. And this is why Black men are moving to the Republican Party. Because Black men were like, damn, we only voted for Trump 6%, and we got a better outcome economically under him than Obama? Oh, I got to give this man my vote. And it grew from 6% to 12% now, I believe. In the 2020, Trump had 12% of the Black vote. That's why. Because outcomes, results. That's what men tend to focus on. Women tend to focus on, oh, it's how you say it. Men care about what you said. Hey, I don't care how he said it. Is what he said true or false? Women care about how you say things. This is why women tend to be Democrats. That's why women tend to be liberals. Look, don't shoot the messenger. I'm spitting facts. I'm a married man. I've been with my wife for what? Since college. So what, 7 years? So no one can tell me nothing. Hey, I know. I care about what she said. She care about how I say things, how I deliver it. And that's what the Democrats, that's how the Democrats play it. Oh, we need to sell a message of hope, even if that hope is a lie. But I digress, man.